My boyfriend slapped me in front of the entire university because he believed I was a rich girl's servant. He did not know the rich girl was my sister, or that the helicopter descending over campus belonged to our father. I had worshipped my older sister, Sophie Lane, ever since I was little. Growing up, my greatest happiness was serving her drinks, carrying her bags, and picking up her meals. After Sophie was accepted into Central University, I immediately got my SAT and skipped a grade so I could get into the same university. On the day Sophie moved into the university, she entered the dorm room with 8 bodyguards. Our roommates call her the One Queen. Meanwhile, I was making her bed. Only Viola Lynch gave me a knowing look and teased me. "You aren't her roommate at all, are you? You're clearly her personal maid." I merely smiled without answering. That day, Sophie casually tossed me the new Chanel purse she had bought. "This color suits you. Use it." When I took the purse with a grin, Viola happened to walk past the doorway. The weekend Sophie went abroad on vacation. Viola and I were the only ones left in the dorm. "Eve, do you know what everyone in class calls you behind your back?" Sophie's pet. The next day, my boyfriend Aaron Sanders, the campus heartthrob, asked me to meet him at the track field. Viola stood beside him with red eyes. When he saw me, he frowned deeply. "Eve, can you stop being so pathetic? You became someone's pet over a single purse? Viola's family might be poor, but even she has more dignity than you." Viola tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "Aaron, don't say that about her. I'm not worth it." I looked at them holding hands and suddenly chuckled. Wait, for real? Had no one noticed that Sophie and I shared the same last name? I adjusted the strap of my Chanel purse and chuckled. "Oh, Viola, you've been dying to say that for a while, haven't you? What, you want this purse too? Too bad you can't afford it." Viola's face turned red, her lips trembling as she took a step back. Aaron frowned deeply and moved in front of her, his voice full of disappointment as he said, "Eve, I never thought you were like this." I tilted my head. "What am I like?" He enunciated each word. "When did you become so arrogant and cruel? Viola's family is struggling and you deliberately flaunted your wealth to humiliate her. Do you have no conscience?" He looked at me with open disgust. I went still. "Arrogant and cruel?" She trailed off and bit her lip, as though she could not bear to say it out. But she wouldn't listen, and then she humiliated me with that purse. Her voice trailed off and her eyes reddened. Meanwhile, Aaron's expression softened even more. The commotion drew the attention of nearby students, and small groups gathered around us. Some recognized the Chanel purse on my shoulder. Others recognized Viola. "Isn't that Sophie's lackey? Since when does she carry Chanel?" When the maid gets a handout, she starts treating herself as a proper lady too. "Keep your voice down. Her owner might hear you. Her owner's abroad, so she's just staying with no one watching after her now." Haha. Their insults came one after another, loud enough to make sure I heard them. It was like they had it all coordinated. Some even covered their mouths as they laughed, while others looked me up and down as though they were looking at some product for sale. Aaron listened without saying a word in my defense as he looked at me exactly the way they did. Viola hid her face behind his arm, her shoulders trembling, but I caught her smirking. I almost laughed. It was only a Chanel purse. I had a walk-in closet full of purses like it. I did not like drawing attention to myself or receiving any special treatment, so I had never mentioned my family. Everyone had assumed I was my sister's lackey. Sophie worried about me and had insisted that I move into her dorm room so we could look after each other. I took a deep breath. "I'll carry whatever purse I want. I don't think that's any of your business, right?" I did not expect that to strike a nerve, and Viola instantly raised her voice. Viola's eyes welled up with tears, but she held her head up high, even as she loudly questioned me. "Eve, what gives you the right to talk to me like that? Yes, I'm poor. My family isn't well off too, and I've never carried a Chanel purse in my life. But you can't afford luxury goods either, so you became someone else's pet. What gives you the right to show off in front of me?" Everyone around us turned to stare at us while I simply laughed out of anger. I did not even mention her, but she was already playing the victim card. I stepped forward and looked down at her. "Viola, what makes you think I can't afford it?" Her lips opened, but Aaron let out a scornful laugh before she could answer it as he gave me an impatient look. "Eve, who are you trying to fool? Other people might not know how you live, but I do. You wear the same few outfits over and over, and you always order the cheapest food in the cafeteria. Last month, you spent forever calculating how to save $5 on your phone bill. At least Viola doesn't pretend to be someone she isn't. What do you have?" He spread his hands, his voice dripping with contempt. "No matter what designer purses you have, they are all imitations anyway. Aren't you ashamed to use someone else's handout to humiliate Viola?" I could hear the low chuckles from all around me as pain rose in my chest. I took a deep breath and forced the pain down. "Are you done?" I turned to Aaron as I enunciated each word. "Whether I can afford it is my business. What does it have to do with any of you? Move." I turned around and started walking away, and the crowd parted for me. I had taken only 2 steps when Aaron called after me. He sounded furious, as though my refusal had struck a sore spot. He hurried after me and grabbed my arm. "Eve, stop right there. Viola meant well when she asked me to talk some sense into you. Not only did you refuse to listen, but now you're giving us an attitude?" I shook his hand off and his anger flared. "Apologize to Viola right now, then give that purse back." "Give it back? It belonged to my family. Who was I supposed to return it to?" I said nothing and kept walking. Aaron shouted after me as though I had slapped him in front of everyone. "Eve, take another step and we're done." The crowd's whisper instantly became quiet. Everyone waited for me to turn around and apologize. I paused for a moment, then I took another step without looking back. Breaking up with Aaron should have ended it. Instead, Viola turned the campus against me. She called me Sophie's pet, claimed my father was a servant for the Lane family, and posted every ordinary thing I did as proof that I was a social climber. Aaron publicly announced that I had chased him. The next morning, my phone woke me up by vibrating more than a dozen times. Still half asleep, I opened it and found a long string of messages from my roommates, with a link at the top. The headline read, "Shocking news. The truth about Central University's wealthy heiress and her maid. Is the girl always beside Sophie an imposter?" I was wide awake then after reading the headline. I opened the link. The post had gone up on the university's message board at 3 that morning. "Does everyone remember Eve? The girl who follows Sophie everywhere and even made her bed on the first day of the semester? You thought she was just Sophie's roommate? How naive. Her father is actually a servant for the Lane family whose job is to serve them. So she really is the Lane family's pet. Mystery solved. At the bottom was an anonymous comment from a so-called insider. I'm her roommate. She never talks to any of us because she thinks we're poor. She has Sophie to protect her, so why would she bother with people like us? I would have recognized Viola's tone and wording anywhere. The post had already reached the top of the forum, and the comments seemed endless. No wonder she's so good at acting like a servant. Which normal people can do that? She must have practiced it since childhood. People like her are so disgusting. She acts like a rich person's pet and still thinks she's better than everyone else. I heard she's dating Aaron Sanders. He's one of the most popular guys on campus. I have no idea what he ever saw in her. Someone tagged Aaron's account. When I opened it, I found his reply beneath the comment. We broke up, thanks. She was the one chasing me. Hundreds of people had liked his replies and praised him for getting out before it was too late. Chasing him? He had forgotten how desperately he had begged me to go out with him. I locked my phone and sat on the bed, staring at the gray sky outside. Before I could gather my thoughts, the university counselor called. Eve, please come to my office. My counselor, Ms. Carter, turned a stack of papers around and pushed it toward me. It was a printout of the message board posts, with several long sections of comments highlighted. She frowned and tapped the post. The whole university is talking about this. Trying to one-up other students, flaunting your wealth, and bullying someone on financial aid have made the department look terrible. The administration is already asking questions. How about this? Apologize to Viola, and we can put this behind us. I repeated the word. Apologize? She threw a blood-stained bedsheet into my wash basin, spread lies on the message board that my father worked for the Lane family, that I was their servant, and turned the entire university against me. And you want me to apologize to her? Ms. Carter's expression darkened. Watch your attitude. Are you trying to make this even worse? I stood up straight, and the chair legs screeched against the tile. Ms. Carter, you don't have to worry about this. When my parents return to Central City, you can speak to them yourself. Her frown deepened. Then bring them here. I want to see what kind of parents could spoil a child this badly. My father's name is Torben Lane. Would you like me to call him for you? I said with a smile. Her pen slipped from her hand and hit the desk. Her lips moved without a sound as she searched the directory and stopped at one name. The anger was instantly drained from her face, leaving her pale, with an unreadable expression on it. You're the daughter of Lane Group's chairman of the board? Why didn't you say so earlier? I left before she could apologize. The truth had finally reached one person, but the rest of the university was still laughing. On the path outside, Viola clung to Aaron and offered a tearful apology that blamed everyone except herself. I suddenly laughed. Are you done putting on this act? You've had your eyes on Aaron for a long time, haven't you? When he was my boyfriend, all you could do was play the weak and helpless damsel in front of him. Aaron pulled her behind him and snapped at me. Eve! I ignored him and kept smiling at Viola. Let me make this clear today. You went to all this trouble to steal a piece of trash like Aaron? You shouldn't have bothered. You can have a loser like him for free. Everything went silent for a moment. Then Aaron raised his hand. My head rang, and I had no time to dodge as he slapped me hard on the left cheek. It felt as though a hammer had struck my head. I staggered 2 steps sideways, and my knee hit the stairs, sending pain burning through it. My cheek was on fire. My ears rang, and stars burst in my vision. Aaron stood over me on the steps, his chest heaving and his right hand clenched into a fist. Eve, don't think I won't do it again. I've been too easy on you. Apologize to Viola now, or I'll make you do it. My cheek burned and blood filled my mouth. Students lifted their phones, waiting to record the servant's daughter begging. Viola smiled behind Aaron's shoulder. I pulled out my phone. I blinked until my eyes watered and let my voice shake. Dad, my boyfriend hit me. He said he would force me to apologize too. The crowd laughed until the first thunderous beat rolled across the sky. Wind tore through the trees, drowning every insult as a helicopter descended toward the university lawn. Aaron's raised hand slowly dropped. Viola looked from the aircraft to the phone still pressed against my ear, and for the first time, neither of them was smiling.
The double-rotor super-heavy helicopter didn't just land, it displaced the atmosphere. Powerful downwash flattened the manicured campus lawn, sending up a blinding cyclone of dust, loose leaves, and discarded paper. Students screamed, covering their faces and ducking as the shadow of the colossal, sleek black aircraft engulfed the entire track field. On the side of the pristine hull, painted in bold, platinum lettering, was the unmistakable crest of the Lane conglomerate. Aaron stepped back, his face draining of colour as the violent wind nearly knocked him off his feet. Viola clung desperately to his arm, her eyes wide with terror as she shielded her face from the flying debris. The heavy pressurized doors slid open with a sharp mechanical hiss. First came 6 men in tailored charcoal suits, leaping down seamlessly to form a double flank perimeter. They didn't look like campus security, they looked like special forces on contract. Then a man in a bespoke 3-piece suit stepped out. Torben Lane, a face featured on the cover of Forbes just 3 months ago, strode down the mobile steps. Beside him stood Sophie Lane, her jaw locked, her eyes burning with pure, cold fury as she locked onto the scene below. Sophie screamed over the fadding whine of the turbine engines. She didn't care about the dust, her designer heels, or her pristine image. She broke into a sprint, pushing past the security team, and reached me just as I pushed myself off the gravel. Sophie's eyes swept over my blood-stained lip, my bruised knee, and the raw, inflamed red print of a hand across my left cheek. Her breath hitched. The girl who handled billion-dollar negotiations without blinking looked as if her heart had just been ripped out. Who did this? Torben's voice wasn't loud, but it carried a terrifying, absolute weight that made the surrounding crowd freeze in place. He walked up, his eyes fixing on my swollen face. Eve, who put their hands on you? The track field was dead silent. The students who had been recording on their phones just moments ago slowly lowered their arms, realization washing over them like a wave of ice water. Eve, Lane, Dad, I whispered, wiping the smear of blood from the corner of my mouth with the back of my hand. It was Aaron because I wouldn't apologize to Viola for using Sophie's purse. Torben slowly turned his head. His gaze, colder than absolute zero, landed directly on Aaron Sanders. Aaron stood frozen, his hand still trembling slightly from where he had delivered the slap. The colour had completely vanished from his cheeks, leaving him ghostly pale. Mr. Lane, wait, this is a misunderstanding, Eve never said. You hit my daughter. Torben cut him off smoothly, taking a single step forward. Daughter, Viola gasped, her voice cracking into a high-pitched squeak. She shrank back, frantically trying to untangle her arm from Aaron, but her fingers were trembling so hard she could barely move. No, the forum said her dad was a servant. She makes Sophie's bed. She carries her bags. Sophie stepped up beside me, pulling a silk handkerchief from her pocket to gently dab at my bleeding lip. I have a severe back condition from an accident when I was 12, Sophie said, her voice dripping with lethal venom, turning to face the crowd. My sister made my bed because she loves me. She carried my bags because she didn't want me to strain myself. And you absolute trash. Sophie turned her glare onto Viola. Dared to call my sister a pet. Viola dropped to her knees right there on the grass, her face completely white. I didn't know, Eve, I'm sorry. I didn't know, don't speak to her, Torben instructed coldly. He pulled out an encrypted satellite phone, dialed a 3-digit extension and put it on speaker. Director Vance, Torben spoke into the phone. Yes, Chairman Lane, a voice echoed clearly over the speaker. Sanders Logistics, is that the firm we recently signed a supply chain distribution contract with? Yes, sir, a $50 million deal. We just finalized the initial deposit this morning. Terminate it, Torben said flatly, and execute the breach of conduct clause. I want every subsidiary, partner and vendor under the Lane umbrella to blackball Sanders Logistics by noon. Aaron's eyes dilated in pure horror. His father's company, the very source of his arrogant, wealthy boy persona on campus, was built entirely on the coattails of the Lane conglomerate's expansion deal. No, Mr. Lane, please. Aaron stumbled forward, dropping to his knees beside Viola, his hands raised in desperate supplication. Please don't do this, my father will lose everything, it was a mistake. Eve, tell him, we were together for 6 months, you loved me. I looked down at him from the top of the concrete steps, the cheek he had slapped still throbbing with pain. You told me I was arrogant and cruel, I said softly, looking him dead in the eye. You said I was wearing cheap imitations and using handouts. I offered to leave peacefully, Aaron. You're the one who laid hands on me. Please, Aaron sobbed, reaching out to grasp at my shoes, but 2 of Torben's bodyguards instantly stepped in, pinning his arms behind his back and forcing him down into the dirt. Before the crowd could recover from the collapse of the Sanders family fortune, a black town car pulled up to the edge of the grass. Ms. Carter, the university counselor, scrambled out, breathless and sweating profusely. She had run all the way from the administration building after realizing who Torben Lane was. Chairman Lane, Ms. Carter gasped, clutching her chest as she approached, bowing repeatedly. We are so honored. I mean, we are deeply sorry for the disturbance. The university had no idea. Ms. Carter, I interrupted, stepping forward beside my father. Just an hour ago, you told me to apologize to Viola for bullying her or face expulsion. You said you wanted to see what kind of parents could spoil a child this badly. Ms. Carter stopped dead, her face turning from red to a sickly ash grey. She turned to Torben, her lips quivering. Chairman Lane, I was misinformed by the campus message board. I was trying to preserve the department's reputation. The university board receives a $12 million endowment from my family foundation every year, Torben stated calmly. As of this moment, that endowment is suspended indefinitely, pending a full investigation into the administration's conduct. Mr. Lane, please. Furthermore, Sophie added, whipping out her phone, I have already instructed our legal team to file criminal assault charges against Aaron Sanders and a civil defamation lawsuit for $20 million against Viola Lynch and the university forum administrators. Viola let out a choked shriek and collapsed entirely onto the grass, sobbing hysterically. 20 million? I don't have 20 million. My family lives on financial aid. Then I suggest you get a second job. Sophie replied without an ounce of mercy. By afternoon, the university message board was wiped clean, replaced by an official, pinned apology from the dean of students. But the damage to Aaron and Viola was far beyond a forum post. Aaron's phone rang incessantly. He was forced to answer it on speaker by the police officers who had arrived on campus to take him into custody for physical assault. Aaron, you idiot. His father's voice screamed through the speaker so loudly that everyone on the track field heard it. What did you do? The Lane Group just cancelled our contract and called in our loans. We're bankrupt. The bank is repossessing the house right now. Who the hell did you cross? Aaron didn't answer. He couldn't. He just stared at the handcuffs being clicked around his wrists, tears streaming down his face as he was dragged toward a police cruiser. Viola didn't fare any better. The university, desperate to mitigate the legal storm promised by the Lane family's legal team, issued an immediate expulsion notice for Viola Lynch for severe cyberbullying, hate speech and falsification of evidence. Her financial aid was revoked, and she was given 2 hours to clear her belongings from the dormitory. As she dragged her worn canvas bags toward the campus gates, the very bags she had claimed gave her more dignity than me, students lined the walkways. The same peers who had laughed at me hours before now pointed, filmed, and mocked her as she wept uncontrollably. The afternoon sun began to dip below the horizon, casting a golden light over the central courtyard. My cheek was neatly bandaged, and the pain had faded to a dull ache. Sophie and I walked side by side toward our dorm room to pack our things. Dad had already arranged for us to move into a private penthouse suite near campus, complete with full-time security and a private driver. You know, Sophie said, slinging an arm affectionately around my shoulder as we walked, you really should have told me earlier that your boyfriend was a piece of trash. I could have had him blacklisted months ago. I laughed, a real, genuine laugh that felt entirely freeing. I wanted to live a normal life, Sophie. I wanted to see if people would like me for me. Well, Sophie smiled, her eyes soft as she squeezed my shoulder. Now you know, normal is overrated anyway. Besides, who's going to carry my Chanel bags if my favorite sister is busy pretending to be poor? Hey, I bumped my shoulder against hers. I'm still charging you a fee for bag carrying from now on. It on my dad's tab, Sophie winked. As we stepped into the waiting limousine at the university gates, I looked back one last time at Central University. The drama was over, the trash had been swept away, and for the first time since I stepped onto this campus, everybody finally knew exactly who I was.